Hello, welcome to another episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green, and joining me today is Tiffany Joissin, the author of The Void Chronicles, and we have the book one, The Void, which is out to buy right now on Amazon or wherever else you get your books. If this is your first time on the channel, please do subscribe to us, if whatever way you're listening to us, and also all of Tiffany's links for her books, for her social media, are in the show notes below. So please check those out. Tiffany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Is it early morning where you are?
Yeah, it's early morning. It's 11 a.m. over here.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Nice time in the morning to have a chat about your book and fantasy in general and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks very much for coming on. So obviously, is this your first book that you've
Yes,
it
this
is.
is my first book.
Okay, so when you and you've got a copy of it yourself, I presume by
Yeah.
now. Yeah, you did. So when that arrived, I don't know if you got like a number of them at the same time or just one. How did you feel when that came in the post?
When I got my book for the first time, I almost wanted to cry because I had been working on the manuscript for nine to 10 years at that point.
Right. Okay.
So it was surreal to hold the book in my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 9 to 10 years is a long time to work on anything. So yeah, that must have been an amazing feeling. So you've been 9 to 10 years. So when did you first have this idea for the void?
I got the idea when I was in high school. It was the it I was at a club meeting for the sci-fi and fantasy club that we had, and I was just sitting listening to my teacher talk about um like story structure and all that stuff, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can I have this great idea for a story. And then I immediately pulled out my little iPod touch and I started writing down all the ideas that I had, and it took off from there.
Right. So for the 9 to 10 years when you were working on it, was that constant work on it, or was it just like, a little bit here, a little bit there? Or were you just kind of just reiterating on this manuscript for the whole decade?
It was a little bit here, a little bit there. I would start writing it and then I would stop for a couple months and then I pick it up again. And then I had it on a USB at first, and then the USB got corrupted, so I lost that file.
No.
And then I thought, instead of a dark fantasy, maybe I should make it an urban fantasy. And then I went back to writing it as a dark fantasy novel. And I went back and forth with a lot of ideas with the manuscript.
Okay. And when was it you kind of really kind of had it right? Okay, this is what it's going to be, and it's not changing from now on. I'm just going to work on the story.
I think it would be around 2019, 2020. I was like, I have to sit down and actually write this. I was like, I finally have to like dedicate myself to the idea. So I decided it was going to be a dark fantasy. It was going to be fantasy 100%, not urban fantasy. And I just decided, this is going to be it. Like, this is how it's going to be. So I finished writing it in 2020 and then I rewrote it in 2021.
Okay. Okay. And how did you find the rewriting were you cringing through the rewriting process, or were
Oh
you like,
my
what, this
God.
is quite good?
I was cringing hard. I was like, what the hell am I writing? Like, what was I thinking? So while I was rewriting it, I was just like cringing the whole time. And I had to look at my old manuscript. I was like, oh, what was I thinking? Oh my gosh.
you know, 9 to 10 years is a long time. So there's a lot of different things that were probably found their way in there. I'm a great one for like, I'll sometimes go back and look at something for like if I'm working on a sequel or something, I'll go back and like look at something from a previous book, and I'd be like, I must have been really into this thing at this time because I can see like the influences of something that I was watching on TV or I was reading at the time just kind of sneak in there. I was like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I put all these other things into it? I should stay with my own ideas.
Hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Like I could see a lot of the influences of TV shows that I watched in high school in the first draft, and I was like, it's too similar to things that I like. I have to spice it up.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. I mean, I'm we can talk about other fantasy stuff as well, but I'm a big Wheel of Time fan and have been for a number of years. And the first Wheel of Time book is very much just Robert Jordan liked The Lord of the Rings and was like, you know what, I'm going to do something quite similar. It's,
Mhm.
so if he can do it, then so can the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you were in a fantasy and sci-fi club at school. So you've always been a big fantasy reader,
Always since I was a kid, I used to love stories about princesses and dragons and all that stuff. I love those types of stories. I remember one book that I read when I was a kid was called The Frog Princess,
right? Yeah.
and I love that story. It was about a girl who gets turned it's about a girl who was a princess who got turned into a frog, and I loved that story to pieces. I remember reading the whole series in one night. Yeah, so I've always been in love with fantasy.
What are some of your other like kind of favorites or influences?
I'm a really big fan of George R. R. Martin.
Right.
Love Game of Thrones. I watched the TV series, I've read all the books, like I'm very big on it. And I really admire Sarah J. Maas's stories. I really love her writing. Her Throne of Glass series was given to me as a Christmas gift, and since then I've been in love with her worlds. And yeah, those are like some of my two major influences.
Isn't it great when people in your family and friends know that you're a big reader because it's like every Christmas and birthday, it's like here's something else to read, and you're like, thank you very much.
Yes, it's so great because I remember one year for Christmas, my dad gave me like a $200 gift card to Barnes and Nobles, and I went crazy.
Excellent, excellent. So the void. Let's talk about that. So obviously we know the background of it now, how it's been a labor of love for a very long time, and finally it's out. What is it about?
So it's basically about my main character, Sana, and how after she wakes up after 1,000 years of being petrified to find that the world has changed. So she sets out to see the world for what it is now and compare it to what it was, to compare it to what she remembers. And from there, she discovers that there's a dark force lingering in a town that she has to face.
Very nice, very good. And obviously this is part of a series, so we don't want to give any kind of spoilers away. But how long do you think this series will be? Could it be as many books as you want it to be?
I definitely don't want it to be too long. I'm thinking a good stopping place would be 6 or 7 books.
Right.
That's how far I have it planned out. So I think that's going to be the stopping place, either 6 or 7.
Okay, so you have it planned out. So do you plot quite a lot, or do you kind of, or is it more like a loose thing that you kind of make up as you go along?
It's a loose thing that I make up as I go along. Like I'm writing the second book right now, and the second draft is completely different from the first draft that I have. There's like more characters, there's more fighting, there's a lot more in, like we go more in depth with the magic systems. And so I'm a pantser. I just fly by the seat of my pants,
Yeah.
and that's how I write stories. I
Yeah.
find that plotting takes the joy out of it for me.
A lot of people say that. A lot of pantsers would say that, and a lot of plotters would be like, "I don't understand how you can do this in this kind of way." I'm somewhere in between. I kind of I appreciate both sides of the argument.
Mhm.
Sometimes when I'm kind of writing and I write myself into a weird kind of corner, I'm like, you know what, I really wish that I'd planned some of this bit out of it. And then on the other hand, when I've planned something, I'm kind of like, what was I thinking? This is just totally rubbish. What am I
Mhm.
doing? You know?
I don't know, plotting it out, it sucks out all the fun because then I feel like I have to write that. Whereas instead, if I just let the story go and grow, I see more interesting avenues and I'm more open to like those random thoughts that you get of, oh, what if this happened? And I can go and explore that.
Yeah, okay. So what's the most surprising thing that happened to to the void when you were writing it? What is one thing that came out of absolutely nowhere that you didn't expect would happen?
Hmm. I think it was the relationship my main character had with her mother. At first, it was going to be just a regular mother daughter relationship. But then I was like, what if it wasn't? What if it was a very strained and like difficult relationship? And I was like, that seems more interesting. That gives the character a lot more depth and it gives and having a tumultuous relationship allows me to explore more themes of like manipulation and abuse and all that, and I was like, that sounds a lot more fun than just her having a like hunky-dory relationship with her mother. So I was super open to that.
Yeah, let's give our characters really hard times and hard lives. It's entertaining.
Oh, it's so much fun. I love the more I love a character, the more I put them through.
Okay. So and you love your main character in this one. So is there a very, very tough times ahead for her?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is.
That's where the Game of Thrones influence comes in, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. So how long do you think book two is going to take? Because obviously you're up to the second draft already, so it's obviously not going to be 9 or 10 years.
Mhm. It's gonna come out this year. That's for sure. I know that for sure. It's gonna come out this year. Um, I'm already 50% done with it. I'm keeping track. I have a goal of how many words it's gonna be. So I know that it's gonna be coming out this year, probably in the summer.
Oh, very good, excellent. And because you've got that bug now of releasing the first book, and the hurdle is jumped, and now you
Mhm.
can keep on. It's been done. You can keep going.
Oh, definitely. The first book is the hardest because you don't know what you're doing. You're kind of fumbling in the dark. And then you see the light at the end of the tunnel and you rush towards it.
You know what? I do the opposite. I get really near the end and I start going like, maybe I should just go back and change a few things. And the last few chapters are the ones that take the longest for me. I think I'm insane, actually, to be honest with you.
I feel like I rush my endings because like I get so excited that we're close to the end and I want to show you the cliffhanger that I have for you. So I feel like I rush through my endings.
There, that's good, mate. Well, obviously it works because you've got one book written, the second one is out this summer, and then we've got plenty more to look forward to.
Most definitely.
Excellent. So, people that are watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or YouTube, like I said before, all of Tiffany's links will be below. So please do check them out and check out The Void. It's available now. Um, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on to the show and talking to us about The Void. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and best of luck for 2022.
Thank you.
And everyone that's listening and watching, until next time, thanks for staying with us till the end. Goodbye.